Hello, and on the gaming table today, we're going to be taking a look at Ork Warz, test number 1. Ork Warz is the little skirmish game that I've been making up, designed for newer wargamers who've not really done anything like wargaming before. And today I was just doing a solo test of the rules just to see how it was going, using the most basic level of rules. We'll talk more about that later. But anyway, what I did here today is I put on 2 little forces on the table of 5 orcs each. This force here is a little bit more kitted out for melee combat with swords and things like that and a couple of shields. And over here we've got another small force of 5 orcs, and they've got more shooters and things like that, more firearms. So they're more of a ranged force. Let's see how they go against each other. So as well as painting orcs, I've been painting a bit of terrain lately to be able to do some of these tests and make them look decent. And so here the little scenario is the melee style orcs are attacking from the left, the bottom left and the top left of the picture here, while the more shooty orcs are defending this kind of camp. So they're not necessarily expecting the attack, they're all grouped around the tents there, and the melee orcs are trying to attack them. So let's see how it goes. So the action here is taking place at about 5 times normal speed. With the kind of alternate activations here, the orcs were getting turns, usually 1 orc on each side, not always though, as we'll see later. And initially there were a few long-range shots going on. That's where I'm rolling multiple dice here, usually lots of white dice. We'll talk about that later too. One of the shooty orcs moved up into cover on the top left there and then promptly got shot by one of the more melee style orcs who happened to have a gun, so he's been knocked down already. He's injured, but he's not dead. Unfortunately for him, one of the melee orcs then runs up next to him to try and stick the boot in, and he then gets supported by one of his shooty fellows who tries to come up and engage there. And after a couple more moves, you can see we're starting to get a swirling melee happening towards the top left there. The orc at the top of the screen with 2 swords is the leader of the melee faction. He's better at hand-to-hand fighting. He's kind of balanced by the orc in the middle of the screen behind the barrels, who's got a gun there and he's better at shooting, and he's kind of the leader of the shooters. So here, as things develop, the melee leader there charges in around the tent and starts to engage one of the other orcs that only has a rifle, and with his superior skill manages to knock him down pretty quickly. And in the melee on the left, the original orc knocked down there gets the boot stuck in on him, and he's eliminated. He's taken out of the game completely. For the shooty style orcs, their friend in the top left there tries to get revenge on the orc that was just taken out by going into melee himself. However, no hits there, while the shooter orc by the tent tries to crawl away from the melee leader here. There's a few other moves and a few other shots and things go on here, but no other effects at the moment. And then we go on to the end of the turn. The little green markers you can see next to each orc as they take their action are basically a done marker, so you know when they're done. And after all orcs are done, then we get to the end of the turn. And in this case, because the shooter style orcs, they have some orcs that are down or down and out, removed from the game, they have to make a morale style test. And so that gets made with multiple dice here, and in this case they pass, so they stay in the fight. The melee style orcs here try to press their advantage now that they're 5 on 4. They have a gang up situation going on, 2 versus 1 in the top left of the picture, and an opportunistic charge against the shooter leader in the middle of the screen here actually takes him out on the first hit, even though he's kind of tough and usually a bit more resistant to the damage. So that's not good for the shooters. There are a few more ineffectual shots from both sides, and then it's the end of the turn. The shooters have to check morale again with their leader down, and they pass once again, fortunately for them. So then on to the next turn, and we're getting more stuck into combats. In the top left, the orc facing a 2-on-1 manages to hold his own for now, and in the center, one of the shooty orcs has moved in to engage the melee orc, fighting over the downed leader there, so hopefully he'll be able to get up soon. However, the melee leader there manages to knock down the shooter once again, so not so good for that team. As some more actions that have no real effect take place here, I'll just mention this token at the bottom of the screen that's jumping forwards between the left and the right. That's basically a kind of an initiative token, and if you use it, it gives you an advantage, but then you have to pass it to your opponent, and then they can use it again later in their turn perhaps to get some advantage of their own. So you can see that bouncing backwards and forwards as both sides try to gain advantage. In the top left, that poor orc facing a 2-on-1 has gone down, but he's resisting getting the boot stuck in on him. He's not dead yet. And then there's a turn of events in the middle of the table where the melee orc goes down and the shooter leader stands back up again. So it's a little bit of a reversal of fortune there. Just zooming in a little bit so you can see the action more clearly. Both sides have passed morale this turn. They both needed to check because both had figures down. And now we're getting ready for the next set of actions. In the top left, eventually the downed orc gets taken out, and so now the shooters are down 2 orcs, but one of theirs in the middle of the table there has been knocked down once again by the shooters engaging in melee. When you're engaging in melee with firearms and without a melee weapon, it's a bit harder to knock orcs down, but they're managing to do it nevertheless. Both sides managed to pass their morale at the end of the turn here, so they're both still in the fight. The shooters are staying in there, even though they've got a total of 3 orcs down at the moment. Early in the next turn, one of the melee orcs charges in there and knocks the shooter orc down in the center there next to his boss, and so now the boss is the only one left standing. Everybody starts to gang up on him there, and they're trying to stick the boot in as well on the downed orcs, and so things are not looking good. And then after all the orcs take their actions on both sides, then the morale phase determines the fate here, as the shooter orcs, with only 1 orc standing, their leader, failed their morale test, and so he's fleeing. And so win to the melee orcs in this little test battle. And so overall, I was pretty happy with how that test went, with a few more orcs and a bit more terrain on the table. I've still got a bit of work to do, and this is only the simplest version of the rules. I'll talk more about the mechanics later on and how it actually works. But for now, I hope you found that a little bit interesting. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again real soon.